بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So inshallah today we're going to be doing our live Hajj workshop. For those of you that don't know, inshallah, this year will be the first year that I'm actually leading a Hajj group. So I have those, jittery nerves as well as excitement at the same time of fulfilling this great responsibility. So I thought I would take this opportunity that tonight at Edmonton Trail, we'll do a Hajj workshop over here, and then we'll be doing another one at 8th and 8th in the month of August, inshallah. So for those that missed it, they can attend it over there. And likewise, this is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube as well. Now I want to share with you a Hajj story. One of the things about Hajj is that anyone that goes for Hajj will have multiple Hajj stories. And I want to share with you the very first Hajj that I went to. I was 20 years old at that time. Actually, yes, I was 20 years old at that time. And my mother was coming from Canada. And we were meeting up in Makkah to go and perform Hajj together. So I was, privileged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that my very first Hajj, I was able to take my mother for Hajj. And I thought, what? I'm doing a good deed. I'm taking my mother. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make it so easy for me. But from the time that I left Medina, it was filled with like hardship after hardship, subhanAllah. So for Medina students, I didn't know this at the time, but you have to apply for a permit from the university literally 6 months in advance. And I had no idea that you had to do this in order to go officially. Then if you're going to go unofficially, what you have to do is basically, I don't want to say bribe, but literally that's what you're doing. Is that you're paying a taxi driver who's a Saudi citizen, so he can travel anywhere in the country. He drives you to the border of, well, it's not really a border, but it's like a checkpoint where he drops you off, and then he says, I'll meet you on the other side of the checkpoint. So he drops you off like a mile before the checkpoint, and you have to walk around. Now, if it's a good day, literally the only thing you need to go through is the darkness of the night and the twists and swerves of the mountains that are there. However, if it's a bad night, certain students were chased by coyotes in their ihram. I want you to imagine that. And they're wearing flip-flops. You're not even wearing like running shoes. So you can imagine how crazy that is. Another brother, his story was so crazy that he ended up completely lost. And he ended up in an area where there was like a fence with barbed wire. So he thought, okay, you know what, let me climb over the fence. He tried climbing over the fence. His ihram got stuck in the barbed wire and was completely in shreds. So now he has to basically walk past the checkpoint, and his izar, the bottom part of his arm, is completely destroyed. Miskeen. I felt so bad for him, subhanAllah. So for us, alhamdulillah, subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy the first time, where just the darkness of the night and the twists and turns of the mountains, that was all we had to do. Now that drive from the miqat going into Makkah after the checkpoint, realistically, it should take 3 hours, 3.5 hours. In the days of Hajj, you would be prepared to go like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours, subhanAllah. It was really bad. That we started off right after Maghrib, and we didn't get into Makkah until after sunrise. So as our bus was driving, as our taxi was driving, we had to pull over during traffic, pray Fajr, and then get back on. And it was just crazy, subhanAllah. Now, I'll skip over the intricate details because we'll go through those in the fiqh of Hajj. But the story I want to share with you is one of the beautiful things about Hajj. Hajj is meant to be a physical manifestation of eliminating racism in Islam. That is one of the objectives in Hajj, to show equality amongst all of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation. Rich, poor, male, female, black, white, Arab, non-Arab, everyone is together, wearing the same clothes, doing the same acts of ibadah. Yet subhanAllah, somehow one way or another, shaitan still manages to get the best of us, particularly with racism, subhanAllah. How deeply ingrained was this racism on my first Hajj? There were two main identities, or two main ethnicities in the group. One was Egyptian, and the other one, we will say, is subcontinental. We had a mix of Indian, Pakistanis, and Bangladeshis. And even on the bus, if the Indian Pakistanis sat in the front, the Egyptians sat in the back. And if the Egyptians sat in the front, the Indian Pakistanis sat in the back. And that's how it was. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I think like Iblis himself chose our bus to target that Hajj. Because just the amount of fights that were going on. So we had the Egyptian group leader and the Indian Pakistani group leader. They were literally butting heads. So much so that on the 9th day, not the 9th day, the 10th day, as we're leaving Muzdalifah, going back into Mecca, the Egyptian group decides to pull a prank on us. I don't know if the leader was a part of it or not, but the group definitely was a part of it. And their plot was that we will tell the Indian Pakistanis, get off the bus over here, we've arrived at our stop. So the Egyptians intentionally sat on the back and Indian Pakistanis sat in the front because that's just the way it was working. So they said, yeah, this is where we're getting off. As soon as the Indian Pakistanis got off the bus took off with all the Egyptians and left us there. Now my personal dilemma there was, because I was studying in Medina, the Indian Pakistanis didn't fully accept me because they thought I was a Wahhabi. And the Egyptians didn't fully accept me because I was originally from India and Pakistan. So I had like the worst of both worlds. Now, as we get off the bus, because my mother is like, yeah, all the Indian Pakistanis are getting off, her friends are getting off, let's get off the bus. So listening to my mother, internally I knew it wasn't the right decision. But I said, let me listen to my mother. Listening to your mother is a good thing. I got off the bus with her. We walked for 4.5 hours. There was this one young lady. She was extremely sick. She had, I can't remember what it was, but she was extremely dehydrated. She fainted and passed out, subhanAllah. So 4 hours later, struggling through the tents of Mina, we finally get back to our tent. And then the Indian Pakistani Hajj leader, the only thing he has in his hand is the bullhorn, where he's making the announcements, we're walking this direction and so on and so forth. As soon as we arrive at our tent, even though everyone is physically just finished, 4.5 hours in the heat, it's just so difficult, subhanAllah. This brother found the energy to somehow get his bullhorn, start running, and he was about to attack the other Hajj leader with the bullhorn, just over the head. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, what is going on here? Literally Iblis has to be orchestrating this event by himself, subhanAllah. And in the days of Hajj, we had to separate people. And literally it's like you're separating two kids. Because, we didn't even understand the conflict. Why are these people hating each other, other than the fact that they have different ethnicities, subhanAllah. So that was my very first Hajj. Now, while it was extremely difficult, I believe it was very, very valuable. Because the second Hajj that I made, the following year, alhamdulillah, I was much, much more prepared. So that is just some of the craziness that happens in Hajj. And as we're studying today, you'll learn that there are even some more beautiful stories that take place in Hajj. So now, by a show of hands, how many people have already been for Hajj? Raise your hands if you've been for Hajj already. Fantastic, okay, excellent. How many people are planning on going for Hajj this year, inshallah? Raise your hands. Excellent, Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for those of us that are going, and make it easy for those that are going to go in the future. Ameen. With that having been said, the first tip I want to give you right off the bat is that when you're preparing for Hajj, it is not a time to become an expert in fiqh at that time. There's a lot of difference of opinion when it comes to Hajj. Every single issue you will find multiple opinions on. So what you want to do from the very beginning as you're preparing your studying of Hajj is choose one authority in that field and just stick to whatever opinions they say. So if there's a particular book, stick to that particular book regardless of what anyone else tells you. That alim is going to be between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. You should not be making ijtihad and choosing what opinion should I do or which opinion is stronger. From the get-go, just decide on one sheikh and follow him as an authority. Number two is that what I would suggest is that when you're going to be arriving in Mecca and Medina, wherever you go first, most Hajj companies now actually already get you a SIM card for free. It's included in your package. You don't even have to pay for it. What you do need to do is bring with you a phone that you can use the SIM card on. And on those SIM cards, you can buy a data pack. They're very, very cheap, 10, 15, 20 riyals, and you can literally use it for the whole entire month. And then at that time, add the phone number of a sheikh that you trust. So you have any issue, WhatsApp the sheikh right away. Calling him is going to be next to impossible, but you can WhatsApp, and as soon as he has a free moment, he'll respond to you. There are multiple sheikh that are going for Hajj. You have Sheikh Abu Isa, Sheikh Muhammad al-Sharif, Sheikh Omar Suleiman, and multiple other sheikh as well. And then from Calgary, for those of you that are coming from Calgary, I'll give you my number as well. You can contact me anytime, and any issues you have, we can follow up and keep in touch that way. So make sure you have a guideline before you go in terms of the opinions you're going to follow. Don't get over there and then while you're in your tent, one person's following this opinion, that person's following another opinion, and you're like, okay, which opinion should I follow? Come prepared in advance, knowing which opinions you're going to follow, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So the first couple of things I want to discuss, just as a general guideline into the halaqah. Hajj is something which is mandatory upon every Muslim. Every Muslim, it is mandatory upon them as soon as they are capable of going. Now the scholars differed, what does capability mean? And they broke it down into financial capability and health and transportation capability. The financial capability, it usually encompasses the transportation. But in our day and age, Hajj prices are extortionate. Extortionate, subhanAllah. Like you're looking at some of the groups, not only are they charging, a large amount of money, but it's in a currency which is like, 2/3 of, or a third more than the Canadian dollar. So it is very, very expensive, subhanAllah. So in that situation, you have to be financially able to afford going for Hajj. So classically, all they required is that if you have good health and you have the ability of transportation, then Hajj becomes mandatory upon you to go. In this day and age, if you have enough to go for Hajj and a little bit more financially, and you have good health to go, then I believe it becomes mandatory upon you. Now, the difference between the fuqaha, does it become mandatory right away, meaning that as soon as you get the money, you have to go that year, or can it be delayed? The majority of scholars said that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a command, it has to be implemented right away, up and until there's a valid reason not to go. For other scholars, they said, no, this is something that is only mandatory upon you once in a lifetime. So as long as you fulfill it once in a lifetime and you have that intention, then you can do it whenever you are capable of going, as long as that intention is there. Allah knows best. The opinion of the majority that it should be done right away seems to be strongest. Number two is, for a married couple, is the husband required to pay for his wife to go for Hajj? Or is this something that she is required to come up with herself? Classically speaking, it was the woman's responsibility to take care of herself to go for Hajj. All she needed was the companionship of her mahram, but in terms of the financial burden, it was her responsibility. In this day and age, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, that opinion is still pertinent and relevant. That particularly now when women are working more than ever, they're still responsible for that financial burden. However, if a man decides out of the kindness of his heart to take his wife and pay for it, or share in the expenses, then this is definitely something good to do, and the ajr is definitely there. And vice versa, if the woman decides to help her husband out in this day and age to go for Hajj, then this is also a very good thing to help facilitate fulfilling an obligation or a rukn of your faith is a very, very good thing. Now we move on to the next topic, which is what are the 4 requirements of Hajj? And there are 3 terms that you should become familiar with. Like in Salah, you have arkan, you have wajibat, and you have sunan. Arkan, wajibat, and sunan. Can anyone tell me what these terms mean when it comes to Salah? What does the term rukn, what does the term wajib, and what does the term sunnah mean in Salah? Who knows the difference when we're talking about Salah? Go ahead. Okay, so something you can do if you want to, but you don't have to. Excellent. How about wajib? You don't know? Well, we got sunnah, right? That's a very, very good start, mashallah. How about wajib and rukn? How do we define wajib and rukn in Salah? Go ahead. Exactly. So if you miss a rukn of the Salah, that complete act is destroyed. Whereas wajib, if you were to miss it unintentionally, then you can make up for it. However, if you intentionally miss it, then it destroys the act altogether. Similarly, over here, when we talk about Hajj, Hajj has 4 arkan. Hajj has 4 arkan. That if you fulfill these 4 arkan, regardless of how many mistakes you may end up making, as long as you give the fidyah for it, or you give the hadi for it, then your Hajj is still going to be valid. Those 4 arkan are the following. Number 1 is the intention for Hajj and the wearing of the ihram. The intention for Hajj and the wearing of the ihram. That is the first rukn. Number 2, it is the standing at Arafah. So on the day of Arafah, to actually go to Arafah. So on the 9th day of Hajj, you go to the valley of Arafah. Number 3, the tawaf al-ifadah, so the tawaf of Hajj itself. And then number 4, the sa'i of Hajj, the sa'i of Hajj. If you were to do these 4 actions, regardless of what else happens in your Hajj will still be intact. However, if you miss any one of these 4 actions, no matter what you do, 1,000 salahs, it will not compensate for any one of these arkan. So these are the things that you have to pay the most amount of attention to.
What is third?
The third one, so we said the intention and ihram. Number 2 is the standing of Arafah. Number 3 is tawaf al-ifadah, the tawaf of Hajj. And number 4 is the sa'i of Hajj, the sa'i of Hajj. Now, let me introduce you to the next topic, which is the different types of Hajj that actually exist. The different types of Hajj that actually exist. There are 3 types of Hajj. The first is called tamattu', the second is called qiran, and the third is called ifrad. Tamattu', qiran, and ifrad. Let me explain what these mean. Tamattu' means that after the month of Ramadan or in Ramadan, you have made an Umrah, and then you will take your ihram off, and then you will put your ihram on the 8th day. This is what 90% of Westerners end up doing, tamattu'. So you'll go first to Mecca, perform your Umrah, take your ihram off, and then on the 8th day of Hajj, you'll put your ihram on again. And we're going to discuss the fiqh. The second is qiran. And that is when a person goes and he performs Umrah, but he doesn't get out of the state of ihram. He stays in the state of ihram itself and goes directly to Hajj. So if someone arrives like on the morning of the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, the first day of Hajj itself, then that person, he can perform his Umrah, he doesn't need to get out of ihram, and he can just go straight into the valley, straight into Mina, and he's combining between his Hajj and his Umrah. And then the third is ifrad, where a person goes only with the intention of making Hajj, no intention of Umrah, no intention of Umrah. And this person will only on the 8th day of Hajj go towards Mina and begin his journey without making Umrah before. Now, because I know for a fact that the vast majority of us are going to be doing tamattu', we'll be discussing the fiqh of tamattu'. We'll be discussing the fiqh of tamattu'. Okay, so what we're discussing today is the first type of Hajj, which the vast majority of Western Hajjaj end up doing. So now someone that is mutamatti' or doing Hajj tamattu', he is going to do 3 tawafs and 2 sa'is. And I want to explain this to you briefly. 3 tawafs and 2 sa'is. The first tawaf and the first sa'i are the tawaf and sa'i of Umrah. They are the tawaf and sa'i of Umrah. The second tawaf that you will be doing is the tawaf of Hajj. And the second sa'i you will be doing is the sa'i of Hajj. Okay? And then the third tawaf you end up doing is the tawaf al-wida'. And this is, we'll discuss at the end, but this is also something which is a wajib that needs to be done. But you do this as one of the last deeds as you're leaving Mecca. One of the last deeds as you're leaving Mecca. So altogether on your trip, you want to make sure that you've done at least 3 tawafs and 2 sa'is. You have to make sure that you've done these and make sure that you understand them. The next thing we move on to, which is the first major pillar or rukn of Hajj, which is the ihram itself. The ihram itself. Ihram means to put yourself in a state where things become haram for you. To put yourself in a state where things become haram for you. A lot of people think to become into the state of haram just means to put on white garments. But this is not the case. The state of haram is to make haram for you those things that are naturally halal, but for a temporary period they become haram upon you. What are those things? We'll be discussing them shortly. So the first of them is the ihram, and that is what it means to make that which is normally halal for you to become haram for you. Number 2 is that the ihram begins with the talbiyah. So as soon as you say Allahumma labbaik, as soon as you say labbaik bil hajj wal umrah, or one of these 2 statements, or any form of those statements, then that is when the state of ihram has begun for you. That is when the state of ihram has begun for you. Number 3, what about the actual clothing? For men, it is two garments. It is two garments, an upper garment and a lower garment. For women, it is just their normal clothing that they wear. Does the ihram have to be white for men? No, it doesn't. In fact, when the Prophet ﷺ performed Hajj, he wore it in different colors. However, in this day and age, pretty much the only ihram that is available is in white. And I actually think it looks pretty cool that when you go for Hajj and Umrah, everyone is wearing white. It feels like you're like part of one big club, mashallah. And it is just nice to see everyone in white. And it represents purity, and it is a good thing to do. A lot of the scholars, they have a lot of reflections in comparing the Day of Judgment with Hajj itself. And they say it actually begins with the ihram, that the Muslim is buried in a kafan, which is like white, a shroud. And then in Hajj and Umrah, he's wearing the white ihram. So you're going to see a lot of comparisons between the Day of Judgment and of Hajj. And that's like part of the spirituality that is meant to be there. That everyone is gathering together. There's a long standing at Arafah and a lot of symbolism that is there. Now, in terms of practical fiqh, what we want to discuss in terms of putting the ihram on is that you're going to be doing one of two things. Either you're landing in Jeddah or you're landing in Medina. Okay? So let's start off with those that are going to Medina first. Find out from your Hajj group where you're going first, because it's going to make a huge difference for you. If you're going to Medina first, you don't need to worry about putting on your ihram, because you will put on your ihram once you're starting your road journey from Medina to Mecca. On your road journey, you'll put on your ihram over there. However, those of you that are going to Jeddah first, you're going to need to put on the clothing part either on the plane or even before you get onto that plane. So what my Hajj group is doing, we're actually going into Doha. We'll have a few hours in Doha, and then from Doha we fly in to Jeddah. So it's a very short flight of about an hour and a half, 2 hours. You can put on your ihram clothing from Jeddah, or you can put it on the plane. And I think, if you're flying Saudi Airlines, they have like a prayer space in the back where you can put on your ihram comfortably, and it's very wide. However, if you're flying on any other airlines that doesn't have like a musalla area, it is next to impossible to put your ihram on in those small bathrooms. Because you'll always have that paranoia, did my ihram touch something that is like impure? So I would actually suggest, if you have a stopover either in the Emirates or in Qatar or in any other country that is close by, put your ihram on from that country and you'll feel a lot more comfortable. Now that is the clothing of the ihram. However, the intention for Hajj and Umrah and the saying of the talbiyah, that should be done either when the pilot tells you that you're now passing the miqat. If you're flying on a Muslim airline, they'll definitely tell you this. If you're passing on a non-Muslim airline, for like Lufthansa or KLM or any of those airlines, then approximate about 20 minutes before you're landing in Jeddah. So figure out what time you're landing in Jeddah. 20 minutes before you land, that is the approximate time that you make your intention for Hajj and Umrah, and you say it from there. And what you say is, Labbaik, Allahumma labbaik. That is sufficient. Or you can say, Allahumma labbaik bil Hajj wal Umrah. Or you can say, oh Allah, I respond with Hajj and Umrah. Now, what happens in the hypothetical case scenario that you're on this plane, you're getting ready to go, but on this flight you get so tired that you're completely knocked out. You're completely knocked out. I would say if you're falling asleep, then before you fall asleep, make that intention for Hajj and Umrah. And then if you pass the miqat and you haven't put on your clothes, then you have to do a sacrifice at that time. You have to do a sacrifice during the days of Hajj. However, best thing, put on your ihram on before the flight or before you're about to fall asleep, and that way you're completely on the safe side. However, if you forget to change your clothes, don't worry, your Hajj is still valid. You just end up giving a sacrifice, and it is not a problem. It is not a problem. Now, one of the things I want to speak about is what are the things that will nullify your ihram, or what are the things that are haram in ihram. And there are 9 of them altogether. Number 1 is shaving and trimming the hair. Once you're in the state of ihram, you're not allowed to shave or trim your hair. And that is why from the sunnahs of Hajj is that you shave and clean your pubic areas and trim your nails before you actually go for Hajj. Do those before you actually go for Hajj, because in a state of Ihram, you're not allowed to do them. You're in a state of Ihram, you're not allowed to do them. So number one is shaving or trimming of the hair, you're not allowed to do. What you need to know about this is that this is intentional removal of the hair. I remember the very, very first Hajj that I went to, certain brothers were like so paranoid about this, they're like, don't even put your fingers in your beard, because if a hair falls out, you have to give a sacrifice. And this is paranoia. Our religion is not that difficult. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never put that burden. What if your child is playing with your beard and like 4 hairs fall out? You're going to give sacrifice 4 times? No, you're not. This is intentional trimming or cutting of the hair. That is what is not allowed. So you are allowed combing your hair. You are allowed combing your beard. It is not a problem. However, to intentionally remove your hair, either with a machine or with scissors or with a blade, this is not allowed. This is not allowed. Number 2 is the trimming of the nails. You're not allowed to trim or clip your nails altogether. Number 3, this is exclusive for men. Men are not allowed wearing any tailored garments. And what I mean by tailored garments, you're not allowed wearing anything that will have the shape of an arm or the shape of a leg, or will facilitate that. So that will be the wearing of a shirt, undershirts, t-shirts, underwear, pants, jogging pants, all of those things. You're not allowed wearing any of those things. People think that you're not allowed wearing anything stitched. This is not true. Any type of cloth that you find, the ending of it will be stitched. So stitching is not the issue. However, it should not take the shape of your body. So it shouldn't have sleeves, it shouldn't have an opening for the head, it shouldn't have opening for the legs, and as long as it doesn't have that, then you're allowed to wear it. As long as it doesn't have that, you're allowed to wear it. On this note, how about wearing a belt? Are we allowed to wear a belt on top of our ihram? And the answer is yes, you're allowed wearing a belt, it is not a problem. In fact, I would say that those people that are not experienced in wearing an izar or a ma'wis or a lungi, wear a belt definitely. I've seen multiple disasters where people are like, you know what, I can do this, I can do this. Then as you're walking, it just like falls down, subhanAllah. Take the easy way out, wear the belt. It'll keep your money safe and it'll keep your dignity safe as well, inshallah. So wear the belt, inshallah. Number 4, and this is also for men only, covering of the head. You're not allowed covering the head whatsoever. Not with a hat, not with a turban, you're not allowed to do so. However, what is allowed for you, let's just say it starts to rain, or let's just say it's very bright sunlight. What do you do at that time? You are allowed to use an umbrella. So basically what you're not allowed doing is putting a separate piece of cloth directly upon your head. As long as it's not directly upon your head, then you're safe. You can use a sheet like this, just carried over you. Use your rida on top, carried over you, that's perfectly fine. It'll protect you from the sun and from the rain. However, you can't put something directly on your head, like a kufi or a turban or anything like that, during the state of ihram. Number 5, applying perfume after you come into the state of ihram. Applying perfume after you come into the state of ihram. And this is for both men and women. Now there's 2 things I need to explain over here. Number 1 is that it is sunnah to put perfume on your body before you get into the state of ihram. So technically speaking, if you were going from Medina to Mecca, you will stop at Dhul Hulayfa, which is the miqat, and from that area you will take a ghusl, you will put on some nice perfume, you will put on your ihram from there. Now if that perfume gets onto your ihram, it's not a problem. But it shouldn't directly be applied to your ihram. It shouldn't directly be applied to your ihram. And you're allowed going from there, and as long as that fragrance stays there, it's not a problem. However, once you're in the state of ihram, you can't put on any new fragrance. You can't put on any new fragrance. The second thing is, people have also taken this part to an extreme, that you're not allowed using scented soap, right? Or you're not allowed using a fragrant deodorant before you put on your ihram. This has no basis. In terms of the deodorant, I would say actually use an antiperspirant. The antiperspirant is probably the best thing. It'll keep you dry as long as possible. Now, very recently, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but they have antiperspirants that last for 48 hours. Now, for me, scientifically, it sounds crazy. How are you going to stop yourself from sweating for 48 hours? And I'm sure it's probably harmful for your body, but if you're only using it for a few days during the days of Hajj, inshallah the harm isn't that great. Use something like that for the first time you're putting your ihram on. It'll control the sweat, because you're definitely going to be sweating a lot. You're definitely going to be perspiring a lot. Now the issue of the soap itself, regardless of it's fragrant or non-fragrant, it doesn't make a difference. Fiqh-wise, it doesn't make a difference. However, in your group, you will probably find people that will tell you your Hajj is invalid if you use fragrant soap. So avoid the ikhtilaf by Dettol soap. It is non-fragrant, it has no fragrance, and it does a good job of killing the bacteria. It does a good job of killing the bacteria. So those are the first 5. And those are the most pertinent ones as well, because the rest of them are circumstantial. So number 6, you're not allowed to hunt. And I don't believe Westerners hunt anymore. This does not encompass the killing of those cockroaches that are harmful to you, or the killing of those animals that are harmful to you. So if a snake is about to attack you, it doesn't mean that you're in ihram, oh sorry snake, I can't hurt you, please kill me. That's not how it works. You still kill that snake and it's not a problem. But you're not allowed hunting during that time. Anything that is harmful, you're allowed to remove. Number 7, you're not allowed to get married in the state of ihram. You cannot even go and propose to a woman or tell her that you're interested in proposing to a woman. And what was funny is that when we learned the fiqh of Hajj, in theory, we're like, what difference does this, why is this being mentioned? Why would the Prophet ﷺ specifically say you can't even propose to a woman during Hajj? And then you realize the practicality of it, that as single men, when we go for Hajj, naturally you see a beautiful woman, you start thinking, man, she would make a good wife. And it's the practicality of it that, subhanAllah, your mind will just naturally go towards that. The Prophet ﷺ cut it off from the root that even in a state of ihram, you're not even allowed proposing. Not even hinting that you want to get married to someone. So completely get it out of your mind. And then related to this, 8 and 9 is any form of foreplay with your wife and intercourse with your wife. 8 and 9, those are completely off the table. Completely off the table. So those are the 9 things that are prohibited in ihram. Those are the 9 things that are prohibited in ihram. Now, one thing I want to mention is that it is very important to differentiate between that which is unintentional versus that which is done for a reason, versus that which is done intentionally without a reason. So we're looking at 3 things. Something that is a mistake and unintentional, something that is done for a reason, and then something that is done intentionally without a reason. So let us take the first one. In terms of the covering of the head, right? As a man, you're not allowed covering your head. You're not allowed putting anything on top of your head. But you're walking and you know what, it starts to rain, and in your backpack you just happen to have like a baseball cap on. So you just think to yourself, you know what, it's raining, let me just put a baseball cap on. You put the baseball cap on, and then someone tells you, hey, you're not allowed, covering your head in Hajj, so you take it off right away. This is a mistake. It was unintentional. There are no consequences for this. There's no dam, no fasting, no feeding people. None of that has to be done. None of that has to be done. Number 2 is that which is intentional, but there is a reason behind it. So during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a companion by the name of Ka'b. And when he went for Hajj, he ended up getting lice in Hajj. So in the state of ihram, he's like scratching his head all the time. So much so that you could see the lice flying off of his hair onto his ihram. That's how much lice he had in his hair, subhanAllah. When the Prophet ﷺ saw this, he told him, Ya Ka'b, go and shave your head and pay the fidya, and just give the dam, and there's no sin upon you. So here you have a reason for doing it, and you do it, you still have to give the dam, but there is no sin upon you for doing it. There's no sin upon you for doing it. Okay? So that is scenario number 2. Scenario number 3 is that you have no reason, and it's not out of forgetfulness, but it's just out of like foolishness, right? And I'll give you an example of this. This is the example of a man that goes for Hajj or Umrah for the very first time, and he is extremely uncomfortable not wearing any underwear.
And he can't get beyond himself to not wear any underwear. So he says, you know what, forget it, I'm going to wear underwear underneath my ihram. So he ends up wearing underwear, intentionally. This person, not only is he sinful, but he has to give a fidya as well. He has to do a slaughtering at that time as well. He has to give a slaughtering at that time as well. Now, related to those things that are called the nullifiers of ihram, or those things that are prohibited, not nullifiers, those things that are prohibited in your ihram, you'll have one of three options. Either you can do the dam, or you can fast for 3 days after Hajj, or you can feed 6 poor people, or you can feed 6 poor people. Those are your three options if you were to do any of those things that are prohibited in Hajj, from the first 5 of them. However, if you were to engage in intimacy, then this is from the major of them, and then there's a special, expiation for that we'll take at a later time, Okay, so we've discussed that. Now, once we've discussed the ihram, let us actually discuss the Umrah itself. Umrah consists of 3 steps. Umrah consists of 3 steps. Number 1 is the is the tawaf. Number 2 is the sa'i. And number 3 is the shaving or the trimming of the hair. So let us start off with the Umrah itself. With the tawaf, the first thing you're going to be doing is, as soon as you enter into Al-Masjid Al-Haram in Mecca, you need to know that there's no Tahiyyat al-Masjid. In any other masjid that you enter, it is from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that you pray 2 rak'ahs. In Al-Masjid Al-Haram, there is no Tahiyyat al-Masjid. You should start your tawaf right away. Where do you start your tawaf from? From Al-Hajar al-Aswad, from the black stone. With the black stone, if you're able to kiss it, you should go and kiss it. If you're not able to kiss it, you should try to touch it. If you're not able to touch it, then just make ishara with it, just make an indication to it, and that is how you begin your Hajj. Back in the day, it was very feasible to touch or to kiss the black stone. Now, if you're in Umrah, in Ihram, I would say make things easy for yourself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't made it obligatory, hasn't made it mandatory. Just make the ishara, say Bismillah or Allahu Akbar as you start your tawaf, and you begin. Once you start your tawaf, the first thing you should do before you start with the Hajar al-Aswad is uncover the right shoulder. So for men, we uncover the right shoulder. You take the ihram and put it underneath and uncover the right shoulder at that time. And this is how you will remain for all of tawaf. You will remain all of tawaf. Theoretically speaking, the first 3 tawaf should be done at a faster pace. The Prophet ﷺ was known to have run or walked very fast in the first 3 tawaf. In this day and age, due to the amount of people that are going to be there, practically it's impossible. Just go with the flow, follow the crowd, and do whatever you can. From the sunnahs of tawaf is that the Prophet ﷺ, between the Rukn al-Yamani and the Hajar al-Aswad, he would continue to say, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. That Allah grant us good in this life, grant us good in the next, and save us from the punishment of the hellfire. For the rest of the tawaf, you can make dua, you can make dhikr, you can recite Quran. Those are the things that you should focus on. Unfortunately, in this day and age, you see all sorts of preposterous things. During my time, we used to see people talking on their phones, and we're like, this is crazy, this is terrible. But now you see people like live Snapchatting, like, hey, I'm making tawaf right now, follow my snaps and stuff. And this is just insanity. Like during that time, just focus on dhikr, dua, and Quran. Dhikr, dua, and Quran. Nothing else. That should be your focus. You will perform the tawaf 7 times. Now, one of the things that is most difficult is keeping track of the numbers. Because it's so crowded and it's taking so long and you're busy with dhikr, you start to think, hey, did I do 2? Did I do 3? Where am I? Here's a really cool app. There's an app called the Salam app. If you download it on your phone before you go, it actually keeps track of how many tawaf you've made. So as long as the app is on while you're making tawaf, it'll keep track of how many tawaf you've made. And so that way you won't have to get confused. In this situation, you don't have the app. What do? You always build upon the lower number. Always build upon the lower number. So was it 6? Was it 7? Always go towards 6 and do the extra one and there's no sajdat sahwi or anything like that. You just go on the safer side. You just go on the safer side. Once you finish the tawaf, it is from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to pray 2 rak'ahs behind the maqam of Ibrahim. So there's almost like a golden dome / cylinder that you'll see where there's the footprint of Ibrahim alayhi salam in it. This is called the maqam of Ibrahim. Pray 2 rak'ahs behind that. The Prophet ﷺ used to recite Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun and Qul huwallahu ahad in the 2 rak'ahs. It is also from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to drink zamzam. It is also from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to drink zamzam. After your tawaf is finished, the men should cover their shoulder again and then do those sunnahs and then go towards sa'i. And then go towards sa'i. Sa'i again is between Safa and Marwa and is 7 times. And this is probably the more difficult one, because what I found over here with tawaf, the floor is flat and it doesn't bother you so much and you're not going like up and down a hill. But with Safa and Marwa, not only are you going up and down a hill, but even the floor, what they've done to it is that they've put tiles, and those tiles are slightly elevated. So as soon as you put your foot down, the pressure of your foot actually sinks in. And by the time you're on your 5th or 6th, sa'i, it actually starts to hurt your feet. So it's a lot more burdensome on the body. And if I remember correctly, the sa'i is 3.5 kilometers. So 500 meters each way. So it's quite a bit of distance. So you want to make sure that you're ready to do that as you're going. Now in the sa'i, you start off from Safa, and it's recommended to make dua with each time you get onto Safa or to Marwa. And then you just fill the time with dhikr and dua. You fill the time with dhikr and dua. Then after the 7th time, that is when you will go to trim your hair or to shave your hair. For men, if you're only performing Umrah, it is encouraged to shave your hair. Shave it all off. The Prophet ﷺ made dua 3 times for the ones that shaved and only 1 time for the ones that trimmed. However, if you're performing Hajj shortly after, meaning 7 days or less, it is better for you just to trim, so that when you do when you do the shaving of Hajj, you actually shave your head in Hajj and don't trim it during that time. Shaving a bald head is actually very, very difficult. It doesn't seem like it makes sense, but that little bit of stubble that grows, the more it grows, the more difficult it becomes to shave. So just trim your hair after you performed Umrah and don't shave it. For the women, they should take a finger's length off of their hair from the end of their hair. So just a finger's length, that is what they should remove. That is what they should remove. They should not be shaving the hair, nor should they be cutting large amounts of it, but just a little bit from the tips of the end. And that is how Umrah is performed. That is basic Umrah, how it is performed. So we talked about going to Mecca and Medina. We talked about that. Now let us jump forward to the first day of Hajj, which is the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah. The 8th day of Dhul Hijjah. This is the first day of Hajj, but what is important to know about this day is that it is a day which is sunnah, meaning that if you end up missing this day, there's no sin upon you. There's no sin upon you. You can't actually go directly to Arafah, but it is a sunnah that on the 8th day of Hajj, you go to Mina. And you should arrive there around Dhuhr time. You should try to arrive there around Dhuhr time. Because once you get into Mina, you start combining and shortening your prayers. So as soon as you arrive into Mina, you pray Dhuhr and Asr together, 2 and 2. And that is how it's going to continue during your stay in Mina, Arafah and Muzdalifah. You're going to combine and shorten your prayers. So Fajr is going to stay 2 rak'ahs, Dhuhr becomes 2, Asr becomes 2, Maghrib stays at 3, and Isha becomes 2. In terms of your sunnahs, the only ones you're going to pray are your sunnahs for Fajr and your witr prayer. Any other sunnahs should not be prayed. Any other sunnahs should not be prayed. So what should you be doing in Mina on the 8th day? You arrive into Mina. The very first thing you should do before you even get into your tent, take a picture of your tent number. If you don't have a camera, write it down. Save that number. That will be one of the most valuable things for you. Because when you go for Arafah or Muzdalifah, it's very possible you may get lost. And the only way you're guaranteed to reconnect with your group is in Mina the following day. So as long as you have that number saved somewhere, then you will be able to make it back to your tent to Mina the next day. So that's the very first thing. If you're traveling with children, make sure you write it down on an ID card that has a cell phone number and a tent number and the group's name, and give them like a, what do you call those things? A lanyard. Put it around your child so that they have this around them at all times, that even if they get lost, they know that inshallah on Mina, you'll get your child back. So that is what you should do as the very first thing as you arrive into Mina. And then you're in your ihram. Actually, I skipped this very, very important part. So after you've shaved your head from performing Umrah, you get out of your ihram and you wear your normal clothes. You wear your normal clothes. And then on the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah, you put your ihram on again, and then you make your intention for Hajj again at that time as you head for Mina. You put your ihram on again from your hotel, wherever you are, and you make your intention to go for Hajj from that time as you head to Mina, and you aim to get there for around Dhuhr time. If you get there even later, not a problem. There's going to be a lot of traffic. It's going to be difficult. You have to be extremely patient. So don't be too paranoid. I have to be there by Dhuhr time. Or even if I get there, just after Asr, my Hajj is enough. No, there's a lot of flexibility, but aim to be there around Dhuhr so that you'll comfortably be there before Maghrib so that you can pray Dhuhr and Asr together. So you can pray Dhuhr and Asr together. And in the day of Arafah, in the day of the 8th, in Mina, again, just focus on dhikr, focus on Quran, focus on dua. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is that they start socializing. Like they start to get to know their fellow Hajj members, and they start hearing their background stories of what their childhood was like, and what their future ambitions and goals are, and what they do for their jobs, and how many siblings they have. Do all of that outside the days of Hajj. Hajj is only 5 or 6 days. Socialize as much as you want outside of those days. In these 5 days, minimize your socializing. In fact, if you can calculate and schedule your socializing, that is the best thing to do. Don't get distracted by socializing. Number 2, as Westerners, one of the biggest problems you'll face is using the bathroom. So during this time, you're going to get hungry, and you're like, hey, that guy's selling shawarma, man, that shawarma looks so good. I'm telling you from experience, as good as that shawarma tastes, it's going to mess up your stomach just as badly. And you're going to regret, eating that shawarma. So control your appetite as much as you can, and only eat that which is not going to have a lot of bacteria in it. So fresh fruits are great. Lots of water is a must. Take granola bars with you in advance. One of the things that I'm actually planning for this group is something called a Quest bar. And what I really like about the Quest bar is that it's high in protein, it's high in fiber, and it's low in sugar. So even the calories that are in it are actually very, very good calories for you. So this is something to consider taking for you that is going to be healthy for you. It'll keep you, satisfied, and you have a little chance of getting some sort of bacterial infection where you constantly have to use the bathroom. Because using the bathrooms is an absolute disaster. You've tried using the bathrooms in the masajid on day of Jummah. That's only when you have like 300-400 people there. Imagine you have 4 million people there. And certain people, they're using like Western toys for like the very first time in their life. Without exaggeration, I've seen like shoe prints on the toilet seat. I have seen feces on the wall. I still don't know how that happened. Allah is my witness. I was in Arafah or Muzdalifah. I was in Mina, and I was taking a shower, and I'm like, man, what's this really like bad? Like you're above the toilet anyway, so there's that bad smell. But as I was close to that, I'm like, what is that smell? And then I looked at the side of the wall, and literally there's feces on the wall. And I'm like, what happened here? How is this physically possible, subhanAllah? So you want to try to minimize the usage of the bathroom as much as you possibly can. So drink water to keep yourself hydrated. You're going to, not sweat naturally, so you're not going to have to urinate a lot. But in terms of going to the bathroom, try to be very careful of what you're eating. Right? Bring your own snacks with you that have less chance of bacterial infection. So that is the 8th. The 9th day is the most crucial day of Hajj. That is the day of Arafah. So after Fajr, you're going to lead out to Mina. You're going to lead out to Arafah. And you want to aim to be at Arafah by Zawal time. So before the Dhuhr starts, you want to try to be there by then. However, if you're a bit early or a bit late, don't worry about it. But one thing you definitely have to worry about is you have to be in Mina before Maghrib. You have to arrive in Mina before Maghrib. If you do not arrive before Maghrib, then you've missed a major rukn of the arkan, and there's nothing to compensate for that. Right? So make sure you're definitely there by Maghrib. So try to leave as early as you can, and your Hajj groups will take care of that. Now, when we talk about beautiful stories of Hajj, there are contemporary scholars that have compiled stories of Hajj, like amazing things that have happened. Because a lot of scholars from all over the world get together. And one of the beautiful stories is a story of Abdullah ibn Mubarak meeting Sufyan ibn Uyayna, both massive, giant scholars of hadith. And Sufyan ibn Uyayna, he asks Abdullah ibn Mubarak, he asks him, who do you think are the most unfortunate people on this day? And he says, they're the people that show up on the day of Arafah and they think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not forgive them. They think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not forgive them. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam describes the day of Arafah as the day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives all of his slaves. And that is why there's such a great virtue that the one that fasts that day, the fasting is only for the people that are not in Hajj. If you're in Hajj, you do not fast. But those that are out of Hajj, meaning they're not making Hajj, they should fast. And they will have their sins of the previous year and the coming year forgiven. That is the day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brags to the angels that look at how my slaves are worshipping me. So that is such an important day that you make sure you do not want to miss it. That is the day where you want to make sure you're not socializing. That is the day where you dedicate all of your time, as much as you possibly can, to worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in dhikr, dua, and in reciting Quran. Don't socialize unless you have to. One of the biggest mistakes that people make at Arafah and at Muzdalifah and that night is that they start going touring and they start getting lost. This is the one day that you don't want to get lost. Mina, it's a grid. There's maps everywhere. As long as you know your number, you can easily get directions on where to go. Arafah and Muzdalifah, there is no grid. You get lost, that's it. I'll see you at Mina the next day, because it's going to be very difficult to find you in Arafah or Muzdalifah. So just focus on ibadah on that day. Don't focus on touring, don't focus on socializing, just focus on worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With your group will actually serve you food on that day. You don't even have to go out and get it. They will serve you that food. So you don't have to worry about it at all. So from Dhuhr time, from Zawal until Maghrib, you're at Mina, at Arafah. And then you're not allowed leaving Arafah until the adhan of Maghrib. And what the government has actually done, they actually shut down the road that leads from Arafah out, that you can't even leave. There's nowhere to go, right? So as soon as the adhan is made, then that is when the streets open up. Then from there, you will proceed to Muzdalifah. You will proceed to Muzdalifah. And that is where you will spend the night. That is where you will spend the night. As you're spending this night, understand that there are no tents. Understand that you're in an open desert, and it is literally the things that you have with you. So speak to your Hajj group in advance and see what they're providing for you. Certain Hajj groups will provide you with a mattress and they'll provide you with like sheets and a blanket. Other Hajj groups are like, you're on your own. If you bring nothing, you're sleeping on rocks. And literally that's what I had to do in my first Hajj. I had nothing with me. My mother, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless her and have mercy upon her, she was nice enough to give me her blanket. And we shared the blanket in the evening so that as I was laying down, at least I could lay down on something, subhanAllah. But if that wasn't there, literally you're on rocks. So you want to be prepared that when you're going to Muzdalifah, you pack your backpack with two things as a man and one thing as a woman. As a man, bring an extra ihram with you. Why would you bring an extra ihram with you? Because you're going to be wearing something white, you're sleeping on the ground, even though you may have only been wearing it for a day, it's going to seem as if you've been wearing it for weeks. And you're going to stink because you haven't taken a shower, and you might not even get an opportunity to take a shower. So keep an extra set of ihram with you in case something happens, you get some sort of najas on it, you can't clean it off, at least you can change into a second one. Number 2, have a blanket or a sleeping bag with you. Have a blanket or a sleeping bag with you so that even if your group doesn't provide anything, at least you have something that you can spend the night in. And the desert cold, regardless of it being in the middle of the summer this year, it's still going to get quite cold. So you have to be prepared for that. And that night, after you pray Maghrib and Isha, you can go to bed in Muzdalifah, and when you wake up, you head towards Mina. Now here's what I want to share with you. What do you think is the most important characteristic in Hajj? What is the most important characteristic you need to have? Without a shadow of a doubt, it is patience. And this is where you're probably going to need the most amount of patience. Because from Arafah to Muzdalifah, even though it's such a short distance, we're talking about maybe 8-9 kilometers, around that, it's going to take you about 5 to 6 hours to get there. Literally, you can walk, that distance in an hour and a half or so, but by bus, it's going to take you 5 to 6 hours. Why? Because 3 million people are going from one destination to the next. So if you're taking the bus, be prepared to sit in that bus and just enjoy the ride. Don't say, why is it taking so long? Don't get angry and frustrated. Don't complain to your bus driver. Don't complain to your Hajj leader. Just sit and enjoy the ride. And after the day of Arafah, the intense ibadah, you can actually calm down a little bit. You calm down a little bit and you can just enjoy that journey. Socialize on that bus ride. Cool your mind off on that bus ride. Do whatever you have to do on that bus ride. A better option is that if you're able to, just walk. Walk from Arafah to Muzdalifah. Like I said, it's an hour and a half walk, 7, 8, 9 kilometers. Fresh air because you're in the middle of the desert. You see people from all over the world doing the exact same thing. It's a beautiful opportunity to get fresh air, get in some exercise, and then head to Muzdalifah, and you actually get to Muzdalifah before everyone else does. You'll get to Muzdalifah by like 8, 9 o'clock. Everyone else is going to be arriving around midnight or even after that, subhanAllah. So I would say the better suggestion is separate from your group and just walk if you're able to do so. Now, in Muzdalifah itself, besides praying Maghrib and Isha over there, shortened and combined, you want to look at the following. In Muzdalifah, the Prophet ﷺ gave concession to women and to elderly people that they can leave Muzdalifah after midnight. They don't actually have to spend the night there for women and for children. That concession is there for them, that they can head back towards Mina, and it is not a problem. But for the men that have no excuse, they should stick around in Muzdalifah, spend the night, wake up, and then head back towards Mina. A lot of people are under the impression that in Muzdalifah, you have to start collecting the stones for Jamarat. This is not true. This is a cultural practice that people have thought up of. You can collect the stones for your Jamarat anywhere you can. In fact, if you want to take your stones from Calgary before you go, it's not a problem. You can do that in advance. It doesn't have to be from Muzdalifah. Then you wake up in the morning, you head towards Mina, and that is the 10th day of Hajj. That is the 10th day of Dhul Hijjah. On this day is also the day of Eid, but in terms of your personal ibadat, there are 4 things that have to be done. There are 4 things that have to be done. If you do 2 of them, you're allowed changing your clothes and getting back into normal clothes. As soon as you do all 4 of them, not only can you change your clothes, but even intimacy with your spouse becomes halal at that time. So what are the 4 things that need to be done? Number 1 is stoning the large jamarat. On the 10th day of Dhul Hijjah, you only stone the large jamarat. Number 2 is the shaving of the hair. That is the second thing you will do. Number 3 is the sacrifice of the animal. The sacrifice of the animal. And number 4, the tawaf al-ifada, the tawaf of Hajj. These are the things you should do on the 10th day of Hajj. As soon as you do 2 of them, you can get out of your ihram and wear your normal clothing. As soon as you do all 4 of them, you can wear your normal clothing, as well as intimacy becomes permissible at that time. Now, what's one thing you can eliminate right off the spot is the giving of the sacrifice. Going from the West, no one carries a goat or a sheep with them, as they're going for Hajj. That's something that you pay your Hajj company in advance for, and they naturally take care of it for you. So you can presume and safely assume that it's already done. Meaning that out of the remaining 3, you just need to do one of them, and you can start wearing your normal clothes after that. You can start wearing your normal clothes after that. So either shave your head, or do the jamarat, or do the tawaf al-ifada, or do the tawaf al-ifada. In my advice, on that day, try to get 2 of them done in the particular order of, try to do the jamarat, and then shave your head. Those should be, guaranteed to be done, just so that you can get into your normal clothes. Why did I not suggest the tawaf? Because people want to try to implement the sunnah. People love the sunnah, alhamdulillah. But doing tawaf with like 3 million people at one time is extremely difficult. And that one tawaf easily will take you 3 to 4 hours. What will normally take you about 15 minutes when there's no crowd, takes you about 3 to 4 hours. So it is extremely difficult. Now these 4 things that we're speaking about, they can be done any time on the 10th, 11th, or 12th of Dhul Hijjah. You don't have to do them on the 10th. But starting from the 10th, you should start doing them. And as soon as you do 2 of them, then you can start wearing your clothes. As soon as 4 of them are done, then, as I mentioned, intimacy becomes permissible. So that is what the 10th day is for. The 11th and 12th day, you're just chilling in Mina. Dhuhr and Asr is combined, Maghrib and Isha is combined, and your only main ibadah on that day is the jamarat, Over the total of 3 days, you're going to have to collect 49 pebbles. You're going to have to collect 49 pebbles altogether for the jamarat. 7 of them you use on the 10th day, and then the remaining 42 are divided 21 and 21 on the 11th day and the 12th day. On the 10th day for the jamarat, any time after dhuhr is completely fine. Any time after dhuhr is completely fine. And then for the remaining days, for the 11th and the 12th, for the 10th day, any time after fajr is fine. And then for the 12th day, 11th and 12th day, any time after dhuhr is fine. You should do your jamarat after dhuhr, not before dhuhr. Jamarat should not be done before dhuhr. Then on the 11th and 12th day, if you're leaving right after Hajj, try to do your sa'i as well. Try to do your sa'i as well during that time. Try to do your sa'i as well during that time. However, if you're not leaving right after Hajj, then you can delay your sa'i till you're about to go, or for any time during that time. It is perfectly fine. Then the last thing that needs to be done is your tawaf al-wida, your farewell tawaf from Mecca. Let me tell you a loophole that a lot of people use that is valid but shouldn't be used. So as I mentioned, on the 10th day, the tawaf al-ifada becomes mandatory upon you. And then before you leave Mecca, tawaf al-wida becomes mandatory upon you. So people said, why don't we delay our tawaf al-ifada and our tawaf al-wida and combine it into one tawaf? We do it just before we leave Mecca. This is something that is permissible, but it is not something that should be done. You should only do that if you have a valid reason for doing so. That things are extremely difficult, you haven't gotten the opportunity, then that is what should be done. However, other than that, do your tawaf al-wifada separately and your tawaf al-wada separately. Do your tawaf al-wada separately. And that is pretty much it. So you've done your sa'i, you've done your tawaf al-wida. The tawaf al-wida, as I mentioned, you try your utmost best to do it as the last act of ibadah before you leave Mecca. So on a practical level, if you know you're leaving Mecca at 8 p.m. that night, then try to do your tawaf al-wida by 4 p.m. Give yourself a 4-hour buffer that you can do your tawaf and go back to your hotel room, get all your stuff, and then you can meet your group in the lobby. So that's something that I would suggest, try to make it as much as possible the last act of ibadah. What I want to focus the next couple of minutes on is a special note for sisters. The biggest challenge in terms of fiqh for Hajj is, what do we do with a menstruating woman that has to catch her flight, but she is on her menstrual cycle and has not been able to perform tawaf? So all of the other acts of Hajj a menstruating woman is allowed to do except for tawaf. What does she do in that situation? So firstly, let's look at preventing this scenario. So Sheikh Yasir Qadi and some other scholars, they actually encourage women to take birth control pills before they go, so that it prevents them from having their menstrual cycle. And any blood that usually comes out during that time is istihada, meaning it's not menstrual blood, it's just blood that you protect your clothing from, and you make wudu for every salah, and you can still pray and perform tawaf and all of that stuff. So that is the opinion of Sheikh Yasir Qadi and some other scholars as well, that for the sisters, if you know that more than likely you're going to have your menstrual cycle during that time, start taking your birth control in advance before you go, so that you don't have your menstrual cycle during that time, and it saves you from all the problems of the fiqh of menstruation during the Hajj itself. Now, in the scenario that you haven't taken birth control pills and a sister does end up having her menstrual cycle, then she will not pray, she will not read Quran by touching the mushaf, she can do the sa'i, she can do dhikr, she can do other acts of ibadah, but she cannot do the tawaf or the salah. She cannot do the tawaf or the salah. Now, in the absolute necessity case, she has like a few hours before her flight is about to take off, and she hasn't done the tawaf al-ifada yet. What does a woman end up doing in that scenario? Some of the ulama have given a minority opinion fatwa that a woman just extra pads herself to make sure that it doesn't get into the masjid, and she makes her tawaf, and her tawaf will be valid, and she does it and she leaves. However, this is a minority opinion. Back in the day, you would just delay your travel and it wasn't a big deal. But now when you have flight schedules, you have hotel bookings, you have a whole bunch of other stuff, they said that this fatwa makes things easy, but should only be used in a last case scenario. That on the very last day, if you still haven't made your tawaf al-ifada and you're about to leave Mecca, then that minority opinion fatwa is there, where you use extra padding, you go and make your tawaf, and your Hajj will be accepted at that time. Now, practical advice I want to leave you with: buy unperfumed soap before you leave. It may be difficult to buy over there. Number 2, have a toiletry bag that you can hang off of a hook, meaning that you won't have to hold or place anywhere, because in Mina, in Muzdalifah, in Arafah, the bathrooms have the showers and the toilets together. So you want to be able to hang your toiletry bag. It'll have your deodorant and everything else, your toothbrush, your toothpaste. You can just hang it off the hook. They'll all have hooks there. Number 3, have baby wipes with you. Have baby wipes with you. Using water in the bathroom may not be possible. Sometimes there's no water in that area, or someone didn't leave the water container there, they left with it, and you're stuck. Or even some now they've actually started putting like plastic pipes that you can use, but it just gets really weird using those, and sometimes it's really disgusting. Have wipes with you. Take the wipes with you to the bathroom. That's the best thing to do. For men, absolute must. You will thank your Hajj leader, whoever gives you this piece of advice. Take Vaseline with you. When you're performing your tawaf, and as you're walking in your ihram, your legs will naturally rub together. And it's worse than sunburn. That rubbing together is worse than sunburn. And the way to avoid it is put some Vaseline on the inside of your thighs, and that way your thighs, when they rub together, it's not going to burn as much. Number 5, make sure you keep track of your tent number in Mina. Number 6, always carry cash with you. It's not like the West where your debit card or your credit card is sufficient. Your debit card and your credit card are going to be no good over there. So always carry a little bit of cash with you. Ideally, 50 riyals to 100 riyals is perfect, because that will get you through the night in terms of buying food and water, and even a taxi if you need to go somewhere. And in the case that you get lost in Arafah or in Muzdalifah, you will survive through the night and just rejoin with your group in Mina. Rejoin with your group in Mina. So that's pretty much all I wanted to share. Now the last things I wanted to share with you: how do you prepare yourself in terms of reading for Hajj? Find a good Hajj and Umrah book to start studying from right away. I have some gifts for those of you that are going for Hajj and Umrah. We have one actually these are both by Sheikh bin Baz rahimahullah. One is just the Hajj, the other one is Hajj, Umrah and Ziyarah of Medina. So these are gifts for those of you that are going for Hajj. You can take them with you. If there are any leftovers, you can take it for other people that are going for Hajj and Umrah. So this is something good to read. Number 2, if you go to muslimmatters.com, the article by Sheikh Yasir Qadi, which I was using for reference. This whole article is up on Muslim Matters. It's a detailed, a brief guide for Hajj in the English language available on Muslim Matters. And you'll find other books available on Hajj and Umrah as well. Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah has one as well. You can download it from Islam House. Now, for those of you that want to take it the extra step, most libraries will actually have this book. It's called Fatawa Islamiyah. This is the one from Edmonton Trail. This is volume number 4. These are fatwa pertaining to Hajj. What I really, really like about these fatwa is that you will naturally think of extraordinary circumstances that are going to happen. What if this happens? What if that happens? This book will answer all of your what ifs. So you're like mentally prepared. What if this happens? This will tell you in advance, if this happens, these are the fatwa to help you get through that situation. So if you have the time, definitely try reading this. It's not the whole volume. It's about half or just about 3/4 of it. But it's a very good, what if situation. What if this happens? Then this is your guide with you. You can also download it online for free through that website that I always refer to but never mention the name of. So it's on that same website as well. Wallahu ta'ala alam. I know the adhan for Maghrib should be soon, but what I'll do is I'll take your questions and then we have the adhan and iqamah for Maghrib together inshallah. Wallahu ta'ala alam wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. We will be having a second Hajj workshop at 8th and 8th, which will be more detailed. Today we did everything in 1 hour. On that day, inshallah, it will be more detailed. We'll do it in 2 hours, and we'll have more practical advice on that day. So those of you that are able to attend, I encourage you to attend. Those of you that can't attend, feel free to send me your questions, and I'll try to answer them. Or if you have questions now, we can answer them as well, inshallah. Go ahead. Yes. Very good question. Performing multiple umrahs on one trip, is it something encouraged to do or not? And the answer is, it is not encouraged to do at all. When you go for umrah, just do one umrah at a time. That is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. If you want to do another umrah, people will tell you that you can go to Masjid Aisha, put on your ihram from there, and come back and perform umrah. The Prophet ﷺ only gave that concession to the women that were menstruating, that once the menstrual cycle is over, they go to Masjid Aisha, and then they make the intention for Hajj from there, and they do their tawaf from there. However, Westerners that are going, I'm saying doing one Hajj and one Umrah, and that is the best thing to do. It is against the sunnah to do multiple Umrahs on one trip, and it should not be done. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Our brother in the back? Yes.
So the hadith says that if you miss Arafah, there is no hadith for you. So as it is just Arafah, but you usually have to come to the
So the Arafah is the most significant act of Hajj, without a doubt. But it is not the only rukn of Hajj. As you mentioned, the arkan of Hajj are 4. The ihram and niyyah, then the standing of Arafah, and then the tawaf al-wifada, and then the sa'i of Hajj. These are the 4 that have to be done. You can't escape from these. Wallahu alam. Go ahead.
So on 10th of Dhul Hijjah, you do tawaf al-wifada and sa'i.
So on the 10th, starting from the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, you have to do one of the 4. If you add in the sa'i, one of the 5. You have to do either the tawaf al-wifada, or the shaving of the head, or the slaughtering, or the big jamarat, only the big jamarat on that day.
Is it okay to do the sa'i before for the Hajj on the 7th?
No, it has to be done after the tawaf of Hajj. The sa'i of Hajj cannot be done before the tawaf of Hajj. Yeah. So it has to be done after that time. But the sa'i, there's more flexibility on that you can do it, any time before you're leaving. Right? Wallahu alam. Yeah.
When you're in the state of Ihram, is there any restriction in terms of sandals or slippers?
So in terms of actual fiqh restrictions, as long as you're not wearing socks, you're on the safe side. So no khufs, no socks. You can wear pretty much any type of shoe that you want because they're not going to be covering your ankles. So as long as you don't have something that's covering your ankles, you're pretty much good to go. From a cultural standpoint, from what I've seen, if you're wearing like fancy sandals or wearing like Crocs, even though it may be halal for you to wear, people flip out at you. They'll be like, your Hajj is invalid, you can't do this. But don't worry about them. Buy a comfortable pair of sandals, and that's like the best thing to do, inshallah. And it's valid. Wallahu a'lam. Go ahead, Ahmed.
Is there any virtue in the first time that you enter
Make dua. Yeah, so there's this opinion that states that the first time you see the Kaaba, your dua is mustajab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I don't know of any hadith for it. But what I can say is that definitely seeing the Kaaba for the very first time is a very spiritual experience. It is a very emotional experience. And any dua that naturally comes out at that time is going to be of the utmost sincere. And that is why, wallahu ta'ala, they considered it mustajab. Wallahu alam. Any other questions? Go ahead. Yep.
Are the menstruation moments allowed in Haram?
Are they allowed in the Haram? So the Haram is actually the whole, like a large section of Mecca, right? So yes, they're definitely allowed in the Haram, but are they allowed in the Masjid? Then that's a matter of contention. So the safer opinion seems that if they stay in the marble area outside of the Masjid, that is the best thing to do. But in this day and age, if a woman is covered properly and padded properly, they say that even in the inner area, outside of the Tawaf area, if she goes, it's not that big of a problem.
They're supposed to do this Sahih, right?
Yes.
So they have to go from inside to do the Sahih.
Yes.
Are they allowed to do that?
Yeah, they're allowed to do that. It's not a problem, inshallah. But the actual Tawaf area, they shouldn't go in that area. Yeah. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Any other questions? Yeah.
So you do a sacrifice after the Hajj?
You do a sacrifice in Hajj. Yeah.
In Hajj. Do you still have to arrange a sacrifice for your family at home? Or is that sacrifice considered your sacrifice for the...
No. So yeah, that one sacrifice is sufficient, inshallah. That one sacrifice is sufficient, inshallah. Wallahu alam. Now, I want to just share some concluding remarks. The spirituality behind Hajj. A lot of people, they go for Hajj and they're like, I'm not feeling any spirituality. You'll feel the spirituality the first time you see the Kaaba, and then it pretty much dies from there. Then you'll feel it again until you go for Arafah, and then it'll pretty much die from there. And then the next time you'll feel that spirituality is as you're on the plane taking off from Jeddah. You're like, man, I'm really missing Makkah, I'm really missing Medina, and that's when you'll feel sad. The real spirituality that you will taste from Hajj, my dear brothers and sisters, is when you come back to your homelands. When you come back to your homelands, things that you naturally used to enjoy doing before, things that you found time to do before, things that you wouldn't have a problem with before, all of a sudden you don't find enjoyment in. Watching TV, no big deal. You know, spending time with your friends is no big deal. Naturally, that dedication of wanting to come to the masjid and wanting to do good, that enthusiasm is really there. And that's when you really feel the spirituality of Hajj. You realize that Hajj has had an effect on you. Number two is that one of the things I'd recommend the most is avoid taking the shortcuts in Hajj. You will find a lot of fatwa that will say you don't have to spend the night in Muzdalifah, and even in Mina now they've started building hotels there. Go ahead and stay in a hotel. The real spirituality, the real sweetness of Hajj is found in the hardship. Don't try to escape the hardship, because you're going to escape the spirituality. And the two of them will go hand in hand. So embrace the hardship, force yourself to be patient. Make a promise and vow to yourself, I will not get angry in Hajj. People can spit on me, they can step on me, they can punch me. Like I've had all sorts of weird things. I'll end off on this funny note. But regardless of what happens, I will not get angry. Let me end off on this funny story. So I'm performing Tawaf al-Wida with Tawaf al-Wifada. I was only there till the 13th day of Dhul Hijjah, and I was heading back to Medina because school was going to start. So on that last day, literally, it was as if 1 million people were performing Tawaf. And as I'm performing Tawaf, I keep feeling someone tugging on my thobe. And I'm like, who is this person that's tugging on my thobe? Because when they tug on your thobe, it raises up and it almost starts to choke you. So I couldn't look back because I had my mother with me, but literally I felt like elbowing the person. I'm like, stop, pulling on my thobe. But I had made a promise, I will not get angry. And that was the lesson I learned from my first Hajj. Because I saw what anger does to people, I made a promise I will not get angry. I turned around, and literally, I kid you not, it's like these small, Malaysian, Indonesian, Filipino women. They're like 4'11" tall. They were like as small as a stick. They were afraid of getting trampled in Hajj. So they made a circle where they're all holding on, and I was like the center point that they're holding on to. And that's what was happening. Now, in that situation, everything we know about fiqh of men and women not intermingling and touching each other, you try to avoid it to the best of your ability. But in this situation where they have to consider being trampled over or holding on to me, I was like, khalas, do what you have to do. that is the thing that I was going to say. That the spirituality comes with the hardship. When there's no hardship, there's no spirituality. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make easy for us our Hajj for those of us that are going. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us. And those of us that haven't gone yet, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to go. Ameen. Wallahu ta'ala alam wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.